Hello there and welcome to another edition of Lydia's Crafty Corner with me, Lydia, in my little crafty corner. So today I have been playing with rainbow colours, and these are using the fabulous new colours from the Tangerine and Altenew collaboration. So to start with, I am going to be using my low tack sticky mat to add a piece of cardstock down. This is 4¼ by 5½. I then have the stencils from the Through the Rainbow stencil set, and I'm just going to pop the largest one into place. As I don't want to kind of do the little one that's underneath, I am masking that out with a little bit of the satin masking tape from Altenew. Once that's done, I can then go ahead and colour in my first kind of band of the rainbow, so this first layer here. And for the first colour that I'm popping down is the Tickled Pink. Now this is kind of touching on neon. It's nearly there, but it's not quite, but it's so vibrant and so pretty. This is a really perfect pink colour for summer. So once I've added that into place using my small blending tool from Altenew, I'm then going to add a little bit of shading just to the little ends that we have on the little banded of the rainbow. I am going to be using the Cherry Sweet ink for this, and then to blend those colours again together, I'm going to take that Tickled Pink again and go over where the colours touch, just so we can blend everything in perfectly. So once that has been done, I can then add the lids back onto my perfect inks and then remove this part of the stencil. So once I have moved that over to the side, I'm then going to grab stencil number 2 and I am going to pop that in place. Before I do that, actually, I am going to clean my little mat here because I don't want any of that really dark pink to get into any of the other blending that I am going to be doing. So again, onto stencil number 2, just pop that into place just under. Now this does not need to be perfectly placed. It's still going to look really, really cool, even if you're a little bit off with this. I don't know if there is a perfect placement, but I just popped it in and I was happy with where it sat. So for this band here, we are going to go with the Lemonade Stand ink. I love this. It's kind of touching on a straw hay colour, so it's really quite dark, but it is very vibrant at the same time. It's just a really pretty colour. I love this, and I can imagine this is going to be one that I grab again and again. Once I've finished with the Lemonade Stand for the first go, I'm then going to take the beautiful Tangerine Dream and I'm going to add that just at the base of that little band of rainbow. And again, I am going to move back into the Lemonade Stand to even out that colour so it's not kind of blocky. It's just going to be a beautiful gradient into the orange, into the yellow, and then back into the orange again. Again, I'm using small blending tools for this, but you could use larger ones if you wanted to. I can then remove that second stencil and move that over to the side, and I'm going to be again using the first stencil. So this one has the third band of the rainbow. I am making sure that I clean off this stencil before I do use it again. So I'm cleaning the front with just a chamois. And then once I've done that, I'm also going to do the back, but then I am going to clean or dry that off just using a piece of a kitchen roll for that one. So once that's been done, we can then remove the little satin masking tape that we have to mask out the little band of rainbow that we have at the bottom. And I'm just going to remove all of those pieces, and I will reuse those, so don't worry about that. I can add the third layer of the rainbow into place, and then I'm just going to mask off the bottom edges of the large piece of rainbow just so I don't go on top of those again. Once that has been done, I'm going to go in with the colours. For this one's going to be more of a bluey kind of ocean colour band. So I am going to go with the Easy Breezy. So I'm adding that all over the band that we have there again, using a small blending tool for this one. Once I've added enough ink for the first time around, I'm then going to go into the Lettuce Celebrate, which is such a fun name. So I'm just going to add that right at the base of that band of rainbow, and then again go in to that Easy Breezy just to blend everything out again. So once that's done, I can add the tops back onto the inks and move those over to the side. I'm then going to remove this stencil And then once I have popped that one off, I'm going to go into the second stencil again. Again, as before, I am going to clean this off before I pop this into place. I do not want that yellow ink to get anywhere else apart from where it is already on the card. And again, I'm just drying everything off, just using a piece of kitchen towel. Again, remove that little piece of masking that we have. And we are going to use that just on the top of the other one as well, just to make sure that we don't go anywhere near that part of the rainbow. So for this one here, we are going to go with some purpley blues. So we have the Be Grateful that I'm going to use all over the little band that we have here. Again, using a small blending tool to add the ink through the stencil. Once I have added enough ink through there, I am going to add the little darker points on the ends. And this time around, I will be using the Ride the Wave ink. And again, this is kind of just the perfect blue. It's amazing. I love it. And I am just going to add that Be Grateful just to blend everything out again. We can then remove this stencil, and that's all the stenciling on this card complete. So you can move that over and then clean them. So these stamps that I'm going to add little details onto the rainbow come from the Through the Rainbow stamp set. So I'm adding in the larger one, and I am going to add the details for this using some of the obsidian ink from Altenew. I'm just adding this on a large block. It is a large stamp, but you could definitely use a stamp positioning tool or your stamp wheel to stamp this in as well. That would work perfectly. I'm then going to add the smaller element 2 to this one. There is a third one, but I didn't go for that one. I just went for these 2. And again, I used the obsidian to add that into place. So for the sentiment, I wanted this to be popped up a little bit. So I'm going to be stamping this onto a piece of white cardstock. The sentiment itself is from the A Fresh Start stamp set. So I'm just going to stamp that into place onto the white cardstock using some of the obsidian ink. I then have the little hummingbird from the Through the Rainbow stamp set, and I am going to stamp that onto this piece of cardstock as well, again using the obsidian ink. To add a little bit more interest to the card, I am adding some little crosses from the stamp set, the Through the Rainbow stamp set, and I'm just going to stamp those into place a little bit randomly around the bottom parts of the rainbow, and I'm just using the silver lining ink for that one there. I then did want to colour my bird, and we have these kind of raindrops on the Through the Rainbow stamp set, and I'm going to be using the very pretty Berry Cool ink just to stamp that a number of times over the bird just to colour it slightly. I can then use the coordinating die for the sentiment to cut that out. All you're going to need to do is pop that die around the sentiment so you can see everything perfectly. Add a little bit of tape just so it doesn't move while you run that through the machine. You can then run that through any of your die cutting machines to cut around that perfectly. Once that has been done, I'm then going to go ahead and kind of add this into place. I then wanted to cut out my bird. Now you can get the coordinating die for this, but I wanted to cut right up to the kind of stamp line that we have on the image. So I'm using a pair of scissors to do that. Normally when I do fussy cut, I leave that little kind of band around the outside edge or the border, which would happen with a die itself. But because I have the stamped colouring with those little dots, I wanted to get rid of those completely. So the only way to do this is to get your fussy cutting scissors out and get fussy cutting. So as you can see, I'm trying to go up to the lines as much as I can. I find the easiest way to fussy cut is to have your scissors at a slight angle, so your blades are kind of 45 degrees towards the top and bottom, and I find that that's the easiest way to get really close up into that image. So once I have my little images, I can then pop those up into place. So that's going to add a little bit of dimension. I'm using the Instant Dimension foam tape from Altenew to pop down my sentiment, and also the little humming bird as well. It could be a normal bird if you wanted. If you wanted to chop some of its little beak off, you could definitely turn this into another kind of bird as well. But I think that's really, really cute. So I'm going to move on to card number 2. The first one isn't necessarily finished yet, but you'll see that later on. And I'm going to be using the Hug Life stamp set. And I'm going to be using this large floral that we have with the two little leaves connected. And I am going to be heat embossing this. So I'm adding some antiseptic powder to a piece of vellum. And I'm then going to stamp these into place onto the vellum. I'm using some of the obsidian ink from Altenew. Now, vellum can be pretty slidey and slippy, so you're going to want to make sure that you stamp this directly straight down and do not move when you have already stamped it. So a stamp positioning tool works perfectly for vellum as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp 2 of those, and then I'm going to cover them over with some of the crystal clear embossing powder from Altenew. And because the obsidian dries slower and also slower on vellum, that will kind of capture that embossing powder so you can then heat set. I always recommend to heat set vellum from behind, but that's just my preference. If you go the other way, that's completely up to you as well. So once I have those 2 images ready, I could then had enough room to stamp another 2. So while I was here, why not? So I'm just going to again stamp that same image using the obsidian ink from Altenew. And then once both of my images have been stamped perfectly, I can then tip over some more of that crystal clear embossing powder and then heat set. Again, as before, I am heat setting from behind. So you can see exactly when that powder starts to turn, everything's going to get lovely and shiny. And then that ink and the embossing powder won't be moved from that piece of vellum ever again. So once that's done, I'm then going to add some double-sided adhesive onto the back of this. So with vellum, if you use an adhesive, it will be seen. The only way to get around this really is to stick adhesive where you're not going to be able to see it, or add adhesive all the way over the image so it's not noticeable. So that's the kind of way I'm going for this. So I'm just adding that piece onto some double-sided adhesive from Altenew, and I'm then just going to trim the piece out so I can then die cut the images that we have here. So I'm using the coordinating die set for the Hug Life stamp set, just popping that into position over the image, adding a little bit of tape, and then running that through my machine. You can see just how perfectly that does cut, even with the adhesive on the back of it. And I did cut all of my images out. So for this card here, I am going to use 3 of them. And I'm going to be using one of the large sentiments from the Hug Life stamp set. So this one is the one that says "Strive for Awesomeness," and it is in the lovely Amy Tan's handwriting. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop this into place onto the card using some obsidian ink. So once I have that in position, I can then add more kind of detail behind these flowers. I am using the Fresh Start stamp set again, and I'm using the large kind of polka dots that we have. And I am going to create more of a rainbow theme on this one. So I am going to be using the Tickled Pink first, but instead of stamping that directly onto my card, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 2nd generation stamping. So I'm stamping that off onto a piece of scrap paper first, and then stamping that a number of times into place where I want it on my card. So that was just the Tickled Pink, and then I've just used the Cherry Sweet just then. I'm going to use the same colours as I used for the rainbow last time. So this one here is the very pretty Tangerine Dream. Again, I've used 2nd generation stamping to add that in. I'm then going to move on to my yellow, which is the Lemonade Stand. Again, I've stamped that off onto the scrap paper before adding that into place onto my card panel. And then using the Lettuce Celebrate again, just at the bottom. I'm then going to move to the other side of the pink, and this is the Be Grateful. Now, the 3rd generation stamping didn't work very well, so I'm just going to ink that up and do another 2nd generation over where I've just stamped. And then last but not least, I'm going to be using that Easy Breezy just to add that colour just at the edge there. I'm then going to go over the parts that I've just stamped, but this time with 1st generation stamping and some little crosses, again from the Fresh Start stamp set. And so I've used the same colours that I've just done underneath. So Easy Breezy was first on the right hand side. I'm then going in with the Be Grateful to add those little crosses there. I am adding more of the crosses kind of at the edges of those little polka dots, because a lot of the inside part of this is going to be covered with those flowers, but you are going to be able to see through them a little bit because they are vellum. So once I've done the tickled pink, I then went into the cherry sweet. We then have some very tropical kind of tangerine dream that we've added in there. Then we're going to go in with the lemonade stand, and then we're going to add some of that Let Us Celebrate right at the bottom. Now you don't need to stamp this perfectly. I think this is a really fun look to kind of play around with. So once I'm happy with where the little flowers are going to be, all I need to do then is remove the backing off them. So we do have that backing on the double-sided cardstock, but you can just add that on and then pop that into place. And I love that the vellum has really softened the kind of colour underneath, but then you have that really bright colour popping out of the sides of the flowers, which is very, very pretty. I then had one of those extra flowers, and I thought it would be fun just to add it underneath the sentiment on the other rainbow card, and I think it looks very pretty just where it is there. So that is it. All I need to do now is add some more texture, and I'm doing this by adding some enamel dots. So the enamel dots that I'm using are from various different sets. So for the green, we have one of the greens from the Green Meadows. So for the yellows, we have one of the yellow colours from the Pocket Full of Sunshine. I'm adding 3 of those in a little cluster off to the side there. I then have the orange colours, and these are from the Warm and Cozy set that we have. So I'm just adding 3 of those just into place over the other side. We're then going to take the red kind of crimson colour that we have from the Red Sunset, again using 3 of those, just all of the various different sizes to pop those into place. For the pink, I'm going to go with the Cherry Blossom set, and then for the purple, I have gone for the Enchanted Garden to add those in to kind of match them with that Be Grateful. And then I'm going to be using some of the Seashore, and I'm just going to pop those into place onto the edge. So I only used 2 of those. Once I'd put those enamel dots on, I then wanted to add some enamel dots to the other card because it felt like it was, it was missing out. So I'm just going to add some of the jet black enamel dots from the Greenfield set just on either side of the little ends of the rainbow, and those are the 2 cards complete. I really do hope that you like the cards and that you've enjoyed the video as well. If you do create cards that was inspired by these, it would be great if you do share because we'd love to see. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and we'll see you again really, really soon. Bye-bye. Hey there, Lydia here. I really do hope that you've just enjoyed the video. If so, please subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, turn on the notification bell so you can get your daily dose of crafty techniques and tutorials just like this. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.